Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive deep into the hidden forces that shape, well, every single business. I'm talking about everything from the price of your morning coffee to the salary of an airline pilot. It's this constant, high-stakes tug-of-war happening right under our noses.
So let's just start with a really simple question. Who really runs a business? I mean, is it the CEO in the corner office? The shareholders with all the money? Maybe it's us, the customers. Well, the real answer, it's a lot more complicated. And honestly, it's way more interesting than you'd think.
See, a business isn't this one single solid thing. It's more like a dynamic web. You've got all these different people and groups, and every single one of them has their own goals, their own desires. They're all pulling in different directions. And, being able to manage that constant tension, that's pretty much the secret sauce between success and failure.
All right, section 1. Every business is a balancing act. Let's kind of reframe how we think about a company, right? It's not just some machine built to print money. It's way more like a living, breathing ecosystem of relationships.
And the key players in this whole thing? They're called stakeholders. It sounds a bit corporate-y, but all it means is anyone, any group really, that has a vested interest in how that company does. And it's the relationships between them that truly decide a company's future.
Okay, so how do all these different groups actually get along, or not get along? It's not as simple as friends or enemies. These relationships actually fall into a few key categories, and that's what really defines how everyone interacts. First up, you've got the best case scenario, right? A cooperative relationship. This is your classic win-win. Everybody's working together and everybody benefits. A great example is the Kerry Group and its milk suppliers. The farmers give them amazing, high-quality milk, and in return, Kerry Group gives them a stable, reliable market. Boom, everybody's happy.
And then, of course, you have the complete opposite, the competitive relationship. This is a straight-up win-lose scenario. I mean, just think about Ryanair and Aer Lingus. They are in a constant battle for the exact same passengers flying the exact same routes. When you pick one, the other one automatically loses out. It's that simple.
But here's the thing. These relationships aren't static. They're not set in stone. They can be really dynamic, shifting depending on what's going on. Take Tesco and its suppliers. During the pandemic, they had to work together. They had to cooperate just to keep food on the shelves for all of us. But as soon as things settled down, bam, it was right back to intense, tough negotiations over every single cent. The whole relationship just flipped on a dime.
Now, sometimes the power in these relationships is, well, it's pretty lopsided. That's what we call a dependent relationship. This is where one group's survival is literally tied to another. You see this with a lot of Irish farmers, whose entire livelihood depends on a big processor like Glenbia being there ready to buy their milk. But it's not always so one-sided. It can be a two-way or even a three-way street. That's an interdependent relationship, and it creates this amazing chain of mutual success. Think about it. The farmers need Glanbia, but Glanbia also needs the farmers for their raw milk. And guess what? Both of them need us, the customers, to actually go out and buy the final product. Every single link in that chain is absolutely crucial.
All right, so we've seen how these folks can play nice and work together. But now, let's get to the really interesting part. What happens when what they want is completely different? When their interests clash head-on? This, my friends, is the tug of war.
And here's a conflict that is just classic. You see it in the news all the time. Employees, they want better pay, better conditions. Makes sense, right? But the employers, they have to keep an eye on the bottom line. They have to manage costs to stay in business. That Aer Lingus pilot strike in 2024, a perfect example. The pilots wanted higher pay to be competitive internationally, but management was trying to slam the brakes on soaring operational costs. A total standoff.
Okay, here's one we can all relate to. As customers, what do we want? We want cheap prices and fantastic service, right? But the shareholders, they want the complete opposite. They're looking for maximum profit and those nice, fat dividend checks. So a company like Vodafone finds itself in this constant balancing act, trying to find that sweet spot on pricing that keeps us, the customers, from leaving, but also keeps their shareholders from getting angry.
And let's not forget, the government has its own role to play in this tug of war. For instance, when the Irish government hiked taxes on alcohol, they had two goals: raise some money and, look out for public health. But for the pubs and restaurants on the ground, that just meant their costs went up, and maybe fewer people came through the door. It's a direct clash between what's good for public policy and what's good for business survival.
This next one. Man, this quote from an Irish farmer just says it all.
It perfectly captures that feeling of being caught right in the middle of this huge tug-of-war. And it sets up our next conflict perfectly.
Yeah, that word squeezed. It points to this massive power imbalance. You have farmers, you have other suppliers. All they want is a fair price for their product, for their hard work. But then you have these giant supermarkets, these massive retailers with all the power. And they can push those prices way, way down, basically squeezing their suppliers' profits so they can offer us, the customer, a slightly better deal at the till.
And finally, there's this really big one, a conflict that's getting more and more intense. It's between business and, well, society as a whole. We, the public, are increasingly demanding that companies be ethical, be sustainable. But then you look at a business like Penny's or Primark, whose entire model is built on fast, cheap fashion. That creates this fundamental, unavoidable clash between social responsibility and their primary goal, which is, let's be honest, to make as much profit as possible.
Okay, so we've seen all these different clashes, all this conflict. You might be thinking, so what? What's the big takeaway here? Why does it actually matter that we understand this constant, behind-the-scenes tug-of-war?
Well, it matters because getting this balancing act right is what separates a decent company from a truly great one. It's not about winning every single fight. It's about skillfully managing all those relationships. When a company does this well, what happens? They build trust. Their reputation gets better. They avoid expensive strikes and disputes. And ultimately, it's what ensures they can actually survive and thrive for years to come.
You know, when you strip everything else away, it really just boils down to one simple idea. Is a company building bridges with all its stakeholders, or is it just burning them down to chase a single goal, like profit? Because at the end of the day, those strong, positive relationships, that's the real foundation of any business that's built to last.
So, here's a challenge for you. The next time you see a business headline in the news, doesn't matter if it's about a strike, a price change, a new green policy, whatever, you now have the tools to see what's really going on. Don't just see the headline. Look for the balancing act behind it. And ask yourself, in this invisible tug of war, who's pulling the rope and who looks like they're about to win?